I'll get your attention. Yeah, watch out. Welcome, everybody. Make sure Max has had some family issues. It's pretty serious, and so he won't be here today. So, as vice chair, I'm going to run the meeting. So you guys better watch out. And we will, if you guys can read the. Is there any additions to the calendar first?
No, Mr. Chairman, no additions.
Okay, if you, County Council, if you could read the what's in the closed session, we can go to closed session.
Yes, sir. Supervisors, there's one item on this morning's closed session under item 2A, request for closed session, conference with legal counsel, anticipated litigation, pursuant to Government Code Section 54956.9, subsection D2. That's significant exposure to litigation. There's one case up for discussion. Now is time for any public comment on that item, if there is any.
Any public comment? Dave, you want to say something about it? You're walking around. So. Any comments from the board? Okay, let's go to closed session. Everybody ready? Turn your phones off, please. Cost you $10 if they go off while I'm up here, Chair. I'm going to be running the meeting today. Max had some deaths in his family, and so everybody say a little prayer for him. And we're going to open and close in 4 different people that's passed away in the last week. Travis Lindsay, Kathy Gaither, Max Stauffer, and Norm Ching. And before we open up to other people to talk about it, Max Stauffer and I, he was a couple years younger than me, but he owned the Sugar Pine Railroad up in Fish Camp, below Fish Camp actually. And his brother and I, Guido, went to high school together, and my first father-in-law actually built the Swiss Melody Inn in the 50s, and it's still going, and the railroad's still going, and Max will be really missed. Tom McClintock is actually flying a flag over Washington in his honor in one of these days. I'm not sure what day it is, because he really promoted Eastern Madera County and the park. So, and Norm Ching, he's actually born and raised in Hawaii, but he moved here 30 years ago probably and raised his family here. And his son actually is right across the street from me, and really respected guy in town and helped everybody. He just been retired for 20 years, and if you needed help, I don't care what it was, cutting wood or painting or what have you, he'd be there to help you. So, Dave, did you have something you want to say about it?
Yeah. Travis Lindsay was 23 years old. And
what?
23. He was on his way to school on, I don't remember what day it was, but a couple from Modesto crossed over the center divide and head-on collision, and everybody involved did not survive. It was a horrific accident. But Travis was highly loved in the community. I've known him since he was born, and I used to spend a lot of time with him and his folks out at the Chapman Ranch underneath the trees on summer days, eating homemade ice cream together and watching our kids play. And Travis was a very loved community member. Many hundreds of people streamed into the Veterans Park there to memorialize him and show support for the family. Just a shocking thing when a parent has to bury their son at that age. It just, you have so many things go through your mind about what they will be doing and should be doing later on, but won't be doing, and because of the tragedy. So our hearts go out to them, certainly. And then other member of our community, Kathy Gaither, also passed away at a very young age. I've known Kathy since we moved to Chowchilla back in the late 80s. And in fact, our kids played, my youngest and her daughter played soccer together when they were like 5 years old. So it's a very sad thing. Tony Gaither, her husband, worked for the city of Chowchilla. He owned Gaither Auto, and she also worked for the veterinarian office there in town. And just very active community members. Everywhere you go in Chowchilla events, they are always present there and always active. And I know Jay can probably say the same thing about Kathy. And she died too young from cancer. And we will miss her, and our hearts go out to Tony and the family.
Thank you. Any other, Rob? Just one other thing on Max Stauffer. If you don't remember him, he came here a lot of times and spoke to the board. He was the chairman of the Yosemite Madera County Visitors Bureau for years and years. So he started getting sick, and he died from cancer too. And so he was always participated in this stuff. So, okay, Fred Thurman from the New Life Assembly Church will give the invocation, and Julia Berry will do the Pledge of Allegiance. So, thank you, everybody. Please stand.
Thank you. Heavenly Father, we come into your presence this morning and thank you, Father, for your great grace and mercy upon us. we thank you, Father, as they've mentioned, these that have gone to be with the Lord. We pray, God, comfort to the families and to the friends of their lives, and for the work that they've done in the community. Lord, we bless you. We pray now for the council meeting this morning, or the supervisors meeting this morning, Lord, and we thank you. We put our trust in you and ask that you give us great wisdom and insight into the decision-making, Father, and the planning, God, for our great county. We ask, God, you would just continue to bring about blessing and leading us to consider our citizens and God, the betterment of our communities. We give you praise for that, and we thank you today in Jesus Christ's name. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much, Fred and Julia.
I had forgot Bill Kramer passed away this past week, and just wanted to send thoughts and prayers out to the Kramer family.
Thank you. Okay.
Mr. Chairman, if I could do one just housekeeping item, item 2B, just reporting out from closed session. There was no action taken in closed session. There was one item, significant exposure to litigation. The board received an update from counsel and directed counsel, but no action was taken.
Okay. Public comment. Rhonda?
Public comment. The first 15 minutes of each regular session is set aside for members of the public to comment on any item within the jurisdiction of the board, but not appearing on the agenda. Items presented under public comment may not be discussed or acted upon by the board at this time. For items appearing on the agenda, the public is invited to comment at the time the item is called for consideration by the board. Any person addressing the board under public comment will be limited to a 3-minute presentation to ensure that all interested parties have an opportunity to speak. Any handouts to the board must be submitted to the chief clerk of the board for distribution to the supervisors. Anyone addressing the board is asked to print their name clearly on the speaker sheet at the podium. Also, all persons addressing the board may state their name and county of residence for the record.
Chairman, members of the board, Norman Allender here with Matt Schreiber, and we'd like to introduce to you Joe Trujillo. Joe is our fifth permanent code enforcement officer we have on staff. When I took over code enforcement in 2009, we had 2 permanent officers, and we had 0 in fine revenue. Now we are up to 5 code enforcement officers and hundreds and thousands of dollars in fine revenue coming every year for people who don't clean up the situation. So I want to talk about where we've gone a little bit, that we've gone to 5 full-time officers, and so long as the need is there and there's a great need, we will continue to work to get that done. So just want to introduce, we always like the staff to be introduced to the board, but field staff who are going to be out there dealing on these daily basis. Joe comes with a lot of experience, so I just want to introduce Joe Trujillo.
And one other thing, Joe does reside in the beautiful community of Corscold.
Where?
Corscold.
Hey, good man, Joe. And what was your last name, Joe? I'm sorry.
Trujillo, sir.
Can you spell that?
Trujillo.
Thank you.
And good morning, supervisors. Again, my name is Joe Trujillo. I'm the newest addition to the code enforcement team. Some of my background is I'm a retired Marine. I retired after 24 years of active duty service, retired at the rank of Sergeant Major. I was lucky enough to find another great career in code enforcement. I've worked for some of the cities I've worked for is a small town of Yucca Valley by Joshua Tree in Southern California, high desert Southern California. I also worked for the city of Torrance. I had opportunities to work for the city of Laguna Beach, the city of Santa Monica, and my most recent employer was the city of Fresno, where I worked in the housing division. So experience both with HUD funds and then also a lot of code enforcement experience. But made the decision to move to Corscold about 4 years ago. Been coming up to Yosemite and bringing my kids and my family camping up there since the early 80s. So really fell in love with the foothill area and decided to make it home about 4 years ago. And I'm really pleased to be here. So I just hope that I can be an addition who can certainly following the footsteps that I think of the great work that the code enforcement team does
Doing a
already.
great job, I'll tell you.
Thank you.
You want to say something?
Yeah.
Go.
Well, first of all, thank you for your service and welcome
very
here. And I think you're getting out of the City of Fresno Housing Division at probably the right time. So welcome to our team.
I think it was a good call.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Joe. Mr. Dexter.
Yes, Chairman, members of the board, Dexter Moore, Environmental Health.
Michael.
I'm sorry. We issued the Fairmead Landfill Solid Waste Facility Permit with concurrence with Cal Recycle. We issued it yesterday, and the permit is good for 5 years. And under that permit, they're allowed to accept some additional waste streams, so hopefully that'll generate more money for the county as well.
Good.
Thank you.
Good morning, Council.
Good morning.
Excuse my raspy voice. Hallie Crum, Retrain the Village. We're still here and going. Actually, we've also housed and helped out a lot of veterans receive their benefits. It's a tricky type of process, but I'm grateful to be here in Madera. I'm grateful for the support that you guys have shown me. It's still empty, though. Veterans deserve a nice place to live. Veterans deserve to have a customary support system. And this home, particularly the construction site. So I've had a little adversity, but the referral system should work pretty smoothly. I also went for the block funding. But if you step 1 foot next door and one on the property, I'm in county, and the block funding is for the city.
Oh.
Yeah, so I'm going, uh-oh.
Wrong block.
They could work.
Yeah, I know. Wrong parcel.
Hey, we work together. We have no problem with that.
Okay, so I wanted to schedule some time to show you all of the data and how I'm going to collect the data, and some of the guys who have been helped already want to stand up and say thank you. I do have 6 beds available, but as soon as the right type of funding comes, it'll be more. I stick to what I say. I'm grateful to Home Depot for all that they did. They did a wonderful job on this. And I've outreached to other, behavioral health and probation, not to undermine my mission, is to serve veterans.
Right.
So if it stays empty to serve a veteran, it's going to stay empty to serve a veteran. You know what I mean? I just anal about that fact.
Very good.
So I'm still here. I just want to say thank you all for all that you do. But
Your name is Hallie?
Mm-hmm.
That's my daughter's name. It's a beautiful name.
Thank you. And if you didn't say Haley.
Yeah, no.
Usually they go, Haley. And I go,
She'll shoot the same eyes if you call her Haley or Holly.
see?
Yeah.
Mini me.
Yeah.
I'll be like, huh? So just really short, that I have a beautiful presentation. I wanted to block out at least 5 to 7 minutes to show you all of the stuff that I have. Not today. I'm not prepared.
Just get a hold of Rhonda, and we'll get it set up on the agenda, and we'll do a special deal for you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Veterans, because I've always felt like it's a shame they go and fight for us abroad, then they have to come home and fight for their benefits. Come on, really.
It's a fight. I literally, me and Miss Laura, we took one veteran all the way to Clay Street over the weekend, and they stayed at my at the residence I have in East Palo Alto. But guess what? Instead of $133 a month, he's getting $3,000 now. So I'm grateful, and now he can buy a home here in Madera.
Right. Thank you.
High five. Thank you. And it is a shame.
Good morning. My name is Candy Talley, and I am a resident of Madera, and I'm here as a representative of the Madera Master Gardeners. And I'm here to thank you for your support. for our program and for our Three Sisters demonstration garden that is out at the college out on 12. And I'm here to invite you to our coffee Wednesday the 19th. If you could join us, we'd love to have you and show you around the garden and see exactly what we're doing out there. Thank you.
Thank you. State your name, address, how old you are, and whether you're single or not. You're next.
Joseph Dwan, Madera County. I know this, well, technically this concerns Madera County because we send crops to this nation. Tomorrow, I'm not entirely too sure what time, but sometime tomorrow, the Prime Minister of Great Britain will be invoking the Article 50 for the European Union for England to exit or the entire UK to exit the Union.
Cool. Well, thank you very much.
It'll take about 2 years, at least, for them to...
Are you going to go over there or anything?
No.
Move on?
No.
You're going to stay here, huh?
I'm going to stay here.
Okay.
You're stuck with me, Tom.
Just want to make sure. I just thought maybe you was thinking about moving to England, you know.
No. I was there for 16 days.
That was enough?
Yeah.
And then you Brexited?
Yeah. Yes, I did. On the 4th of July, actually.
Oh.
I'll have to tell you about that sometime.
I'd like to hear it.
See you.
Thanks,
Thank
Joseph.
you, Joseph. Anyone else? Okay, I just got one item. I've been keeping you people posted about the rain up there in the mountains, and I had 40 hundredths this morning, and it broke my record of 66 inches. So I got 66.10 inches of rain up in Norfolk now, and that record was in 82, 83, and so it probably broke all the other records. This rain and tomorrow will probably break most of the records that we've had up there for the most rain. So it just keeps coming. Okay. Consent calendar. Anybody got any questions on it? I got a question on T. No, you got any questions on it? None. On T and U, how much money is left in the DEGS trust that we loan these special districts dollars to? Aha, here they come.
Actually, this is, you're asking for amount of money now.
Please speak in the microphone.
Good morning, members of the board. I'm Adal Kat, Public Works Director. I have with me here Ms. Anders Saldatis. She will be most suited to answer that question for you.
Thank you, Andrea.
Good morning. As of right now, there's about 1,500. Thanks.
About how much?
Vertically challenged. There's about $1,500 in the account right now. That account has been loaning money to other special districts and other funds that have needed cash flow loans. So there's actually a large sum of money out from that DEGS trust fund meant to come back in, being repaid. We have a loan for MD85 Valita out of that. We have a couple of other cash flow loans for Fairmead. So there is a large sum of money due to that fund, but right now there's only $1,500.
And so they pay it as they get their money when they get their...
Yes, sir. They pay it back into the fund.
Or their monthly
yes.
fee?
Yes.
So it's a revolving...
It has been a revolving fund, so to say, but in working with the auditor's office to get this item put on the agenda, I do know that the auditor would like to close up that account relatively soon and relinquish that money back to the general fund.
Well, we can after we get all these audits done, and so we can start getting all these districts caught up with the real world.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
Till then, we won't be able to close it up.
So with $1,500 left in there, if another, and this is $4,000 towards Lavina, Easton Arcola, what happens when if they need a cash flow loan in a different special district now?
Right now, we were working with Joel, and this was our best option for this emergency, so to say. A bigger emergency, that would be more districts, more cash flow loans. We would have to work that out with admin.
So it would be general fund now instead of DEGS?
Yes, yeah.
Mostly fund.
There is a large lump sum due back from Fairmead for $450,000. That would help out a lot. And we are trying to make that pay.
Don't be like I have that in my pocket.
As we get the reimbursements back from the state from the projects that needed that cash flow loan, we will be able to pay that large lump sum back, and we're hoping to be able to do so before the end of the fiscal year. So that will be back in that DEGS trust fund to use for other cash flow loans for other districts.
Great.
We are also doing the rate study throughout all the districts. So this district specifically, Eastern Arcola, is one of the top priorities for the rate study. So we hope to incorporate all of this debt and get them a new rate and roll it out before the next fiscal year. So that way we will not have to be doing these cash flow
And
loans
that's what
anymore.
our goal was from day one, and we've been trying to get this done for the last 10 years.
So,
Yes, exactly.
so until we get them all updated, and if it gets relinquished back to the general
Hey.
fund.
Put your name up on there. David?
Oh, I thought that was my name.
Sorry to interrupt you.
Oh, no, that's fine.
Next.
I forgot there's rules.
I just wanted to make you aware also, if you're not already aware, probably are, but RCRC is extending loans for infrastructure to small communities like that. There are parameters, but they're very low interest, and that's something we can definitely use. You can get in touch with, anyway, RCRC.
Yes.
You know who it is.
Yes, yes. Yeah.
And if we need infrastructure loans like that, there are also an opportunity there.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah. Brett?
I guess this is, the question is after, if this DEGS goes away, would we then budget a certain amount of set aside for these things because we know they're going to happen in the general fund?
Supervisor Frazier, that would be an option. What I might initially recommend is just utilizing the contingency account, that we normally budget every year for these sorts of unanticipated things, but it certainly could be set aside separately if we were going to anticipate a set amount.
Okay.
Okay, thank you very much. Any other questions on any of the items on the consent calendar? Okay, the public, any questions on the consent calendar from the public? Seeing none, what's your pleasure?
Move to approve.
Second.
Okay, we got a first from Brett and a second from David.
Call for the vote. Supervisor Frazier?
Yes.
Supervisor Rogers?
Yes.
Supervisor Poitras?
Yes.
Supervisor Wheeler?
Yes.
Vote passes 4-0, one absent.
Thank you, everyone.
Yeah, if we can get good, inexpensive money from RCRC, that would have some income.
They're not rolling
out in low-income community debts. That would be wonderful. That's like this morning out there directly.
I did it while ago. I cleared them while ago.
Biggest problem, people not using their turn indicator. It's one of the biggest problems. People just sitting there, frozen in fear.
Okay, item 6, public hearing. Ron, do you want to read it in the record?
Yes, sir. 6A, Community and Economic Development Department, Planning Division. Hearing to consider a proposal by the County of Madera for a zoning ordinance text change to amend Title 18 to include agritourism, a winery ordinance, restructure the roadside stand, and restructure of the agricultural zone district ordinances.
Well, good morning, Mr. Chairman and members of the board. This is a day that has been in the works for some time. Years ago, when we look at our zoning ordinance, we see, and folks come to us and read it, zoning ordinances are written to be explicit and in many ways, and many times they're set up as a framework. And so that's why you employ a qualified staff to read those rules and consistently apply them. And we keep interpretations and stuff so that we are as consistent as possible. One of the things we regularly do, let me see the list, is over the years since 2009, just a quick deal, we put in place in 2010 water efficient landscaping ordinance. March of 2010, lot line adjustments and parcel maps, also known as Title 17, and subdivisions, a complete rewrite. A complete redo of the planned districts was done in 2011. In 2011, we also added cottage industries as another option for you to exercise your property rights. Again, in 2012, we looked at Title 17 again. The reason why was in our comprehensive update, we found some issues. And when you do a comprehensive update and you find out after the fact there's some difficulties, you don't fight it. You come back to the board and you make another tweak to make things work. And I just will always make that commitment. In 2012, a big one. Since 1971, Title 16, which oversees environmental reviews, was never touched, and we updated that first time since 1971. 2014, these are state mandates, but they do things that help with property rights, things like density bonus, flexible parking, residential care facilities, transitional housing, emergency shelters, reasonable accommodations. Those were state laws that were required, but the way we frame them and use them is a way that property owners can use them in a way to expand their use of their property. And then the other one is ag tourism, winery, revision of ag districts, which is on here today. We have a short presentation by Becky Beavers, but the key is, and this was interesting, when you look at the amount of agricultural districts that are out there, it was complex. And when you look at, say, ARE 40, which is 40 acres, you had an ARV 40 and an ARF. And then you had these all the other ones, and I can't even keep track of them. And so we went all the way back and asked Leonard Garupa and said, Leonard, why do these multiple ag zones exist, and some ag zones you can have a roadside stand and some ag zones you can't, and it didn't make any sense in the consistency side. And so Leonard Garupa, who always helps us, says that at that time there were different rules on grazing and other things that happened that state laws that necessitated these multiple zone districts. So one of the things we did is say agriculture is agriculture, and it doesn't matter. That's a zoning definition, and if you're in, we separate by acreage in 10 and 20 and 30 and 40. I'm not 30. 10, 20, 40, 80, 160, right? So one of the things we're doing is removing these zone districts that just really don't make any sense. And why is it one person down the road from another person isn't allowed to have a roadside stand, which, doesn't make sense. So we went through to bring a level of order to this, to understand agritourism, something new. So it's something new that people are doing that needs to be recognized, so that we make sure, in particular, agritourism is to make sure we're not unduly displacing agricultural use, right? So there's a role for that, but there's also we've had many people come to us saying they're going to do agritourism, and it literally looks like an amusement park. And so we have to sort of bring that into perspective, and we want to put some framework out there by which it could happen. So with that, I'll give you Becky to give you a short PowerPoint presentation. Thank you.
Well, we're going to look at agritourism, the change in the roadside stands, the reorganization of the ag ordinances, and a new winery ordinance. The general plan has multiple policies that tell us specifically to designate adequate agricultural land and promote the development of agricultural uses to support the continued viability of Madera County's agricultural economy. And there's a number of them, and they're all just restating it slightly differently. There is a total of 856,837 acres in the unincorporated area of Madera County. Out of that, 823,384 acres are all agriculturally zoned. Agritourism, the purpose of it is to establish regulations that will allow farmers in Madera County to market produce and agricultural products directly to local consumers and tourists. This will create added value that will benefit both the grower and the consumer. The intent is to allow limited retail trade as a supplement to agriculturally based economic activities throughout the county. It will also provide opportunities for agritourism that are beneficial to the county by bringing awareness of Madera County's agricultural industry and is compatible to the long-term viability of agriculture. Agritourism will require a conditional use permit. Someone who wants to have an agricultural operation on their property will bring us a plan. Maybe they want to have events. Maybe they want to have a little store, or they want to have farm stays. They'll bring us a plan of the type of activities they want to incorporate into this and apply for a conditional use permit, which we'll take to the Planning Commission for approval.
And so, yeah, exactly right. This is a Planning Commission-approved item, and it depends on the project that comes forward. As you know, the Planning Commission, you delegate this down for the Planning Commission to set the conditions of approval. These, of course, are appealable to you, these actions. I also wanted to talk about the 5 acres and the 10%. So there was a question that came up, and if it's appropriate, I'll address it now. Did you?
Yeah, I was on that. I was, on the, just to get clarification, on, say, like a large ranch, someone wants to do a dude ranch or
Sure.
something, say it's 1,000-acre
Yes.
cattle ranch. This wouldn't preclude them from using theirs for agritourism. It would just create a 5-acre part of their 1,000 acres to do the agritourism on. Do they use the rest of their acreage after that too? Or
So exactly right. So let's suppose you have a 1,000-acre cattle ranch, and the 5-acre limitation means you can displace the primary use of agriculture up to 5 acres with the CUP to put in the bunkhouse or to put in a small store. So it allows you up to the 5 acres, or a place just to meet, right? Everybody meets there, and they get on the horses, and they use the whole property. Absolutely, you can use the whole property for the agritourism. There are a lot of farmers currently that legally do tours, farm tours on their property, because they don't displace the ag use at all. They come out on the weekend, they have a little cart, they drive around and show people the farm, and it's a very good thing. That is not displacing the agricultural use, and in fact, it's even allowable in the Williamson Act, because that's a big issue as well. So what we're saying is that the acreage dedicated to non-primary agricultural use would be limited to 5 acres, but, doesn't mean that you can't use your entire property to go right around, because that's not displacing the agricultural use. So that's where the differentiation happens, yes. Exactly.
So like that guy in Portugal a couple years ago, wanted to put that veteran camp on that 40 acres and bring that?
To tell you the truth, Supervisor, I've looked at that proposal. First of all, I don't want to make an interpretation here at the podium or at the desk without seeing it, but I've looked at lots of those types of things. Yeah. If you're in Williamson Act, there's a whole other set of rules that come in and play. And one of those rules would be you're not substantially displacing the agricultural use, right. And also allows processing on nearby lands. So I have seen...
I'm just saying like that 1,000 acre, could you do it on a 40 acre and take 5 acres out and put a bunkhouse?
I'd have to see the proposal. In other words, I'd have to see the proposal. I've seen several proposals that are compatible with Williamson Act, and I've seen several proposals that aren't compatible with Williamson Act. So. Right. So if you want to come in and have a program to use anybody, and as a part of your treatment, people stay there and do agricultural work, that's something we can accommodate, right, as part of the program and the training. What we many times get is, well, we want to run a commercial kennel from a Williamson Act property. Yeah. You can't run a commercial kennel on a Williamson Act property. It's not what's called a compatible use under the Act, right? So there are a lot of things that you can do and a lot of things you cannot do, and that's what you essentially employ me and Jamie Bax to do on a daily basis. Jamie Bax isn't here, but every interpretation on the Williamson Act comes directly to me. That's such an important program. You saw how much of it we have in this county. I think over 60% of what we control is some kind of ag preserve. So when it comes to the Williamson Act side of it, we do have to go through another situation, and your board over the years has always been very clear that we will protect that program and not put it in jeopardy. So just to be clear, though, for those who are listening out there, not the 5 acres for your total ranch. That means the 5 acres that are dedicated only to non-agricultural activity. Oh, okay. Riding a trolley or riding a horse through an agricultural property is already okay, right? Because it's not displacing the agricultural use.
So you'd have like the visitor center or whatever, take them through that show, like on a dairy, show them how.
Exactly.
Then you can take them on a tour through the rest of it.
Yeah.
Okay.
I can tell you I went on a tour of an agricultural property here in Madera, and it was organized it was a church group out of Fresno, my wife's church. We were down there at church, and it was a Madera farmer. I knew the farmer. He was a former president of the Farm Bureau. He took us out there and just walked us around and showed us about this. It in no way interfered with the agricultural production. Right. Yes.
So 40-acre vineyard with a winery on it?
Yes.
Fine.
Fine. Totally fine. Encouraged.
Yeah. Okay.
We're also going to totally restructure the roadside stand. Currently, you have to have a conditional use permit for a roadside stand in any agricultural property. And we feel that this is really unnecessary. So we're going to allow by right, or we're proposing to allow by right a roadside stand to sell the commodities or the produce that you are actually growing on that property. There'll be a second phase, which would be a produce stand, which would require a zoning permit. And in that, you could sell your agricultural products sold on-site, but you could also sell sundries and prepackaged food and bottled water and canned beverages. And that would take a zoning permit because we need to be able to notify the neighbors of what is going on and give them a chance to respond. The third element would be the agricultural store, which would be larger, but they would be able to sell egg products grown anywhere in Madera County, sundries, prepackaged food, bottled and canned beverages, to allow in conjunction with the sale of their own produce. And that would require a conditional use permit.
And what we've encountered there over the years in this discussion of these stands is, we understand that people grow a commodity, food and fiber, right, and they may want to sell it. But they many times want to add something like bottled water and all that. And so we've always looked at that as some way as incidental to or de minimis.
Right.
But at some point, sometimes, again, we don't have a major problem with it, but at some point we find out that people are now making pasta and selling it and really going to the next level with it, which is that a good idea? Maybe it is or not, but we need to discuss it a little closer and discuss other things there. So at one level, we're equalizing it because right now certain farmers can't have a roadside stand at all. It's just prohibited, literally a prohibited use, which doesn't make sense. It seems unfair. So we wanted to make it so that it's equitable for everybody, but we get regular requests of, well, what if I want to sell bottled water at my set? Of course it's appropriate to sell bottled water. That's not a major displacement, but there has to be a limit on it. You can't turn it into a mini mart, exactly, a C-store or a farmer's market where you're bringing in other things. In other words, there are ways to be more intensive about this, and we allow you to be basic by right, and the more intensive you are, you can get a zoning permit, which is issued by staff, or a conditional use permit, which is issued by Planning Commission. And of course, it's the board's direction of how we issue these permits, but we typically try to have that happen at the staff and Planning Commission level so that, that's how you've delegated in the past. So, thank you, Becky.
Brett, you got a question? Brett?
So, on the delineation of these different ones, a roadside stand, there's a farmer who has, their main farm, say, is on, Avenue 5 that gets very little traffic, but then they also have good on 12 or 41 or somewhere like that. Are they able to bring their products that they grow on their farm that's not on a highly traveled route to their roadside stand on another piece of property that they own? Is that only under the agricultural store?
That's a really good question. And
the short answer is yes.
Yeah, when we originally wrote this, we really hadn't thought about that. But yes, if it's all owned and grown by that farmer on his property, yes, they would be able to sell it.
Even though the land isn't contiguous with their other piece of property, they can do that.
So, and that's been an issue we've encountered in the past, and that's why Supervisor Frazier, I know, mentions it because he and I have gone over this. In his district, there are many of his constituents who are in this unfortunate position where they started a business, and somewhere in 1989, they changed the rules to actually make roadside stands stricter. And they I don't know what the thinking was then. It's hard for me to understand, go back that far with the records. But it's inconsistently applied. So, yes, we would absolutely want it, and it may require the conditional use permit, but the avenue is still there so that if you are growing down by the river but you want to sell on Avenue 12, which a lot of these places are, we make a provision for that, yeah. So we now accommodate that within the ordinance, yes.
David.
Yeah, I can see the limitation need for that because people, they'll tend to it'll creep.
Scope creep, we call it.
Yeah,
Scope creep,
like
yes.
You said, they're going to want to sell pasta or whatever, hot dogs, and then, health department rules still apply.
Yes.
So I think this is a good, it's a good nexus for, creating opportunity without being too onerous, but at the same time, keeping that limitation there so that the health and safety and welfare of the public, both from a traffic standpoint as well as food safety preparation, what have you, is all complied with.
Okay. Moving on.
This is the element of this proposal that Norm was talking about. Currently, we have 8 different agricultural zone districts. We are proposing to, the AEX was originally it had to do with crossing a road, and it was very limited on structures. In fact, I don't think you can even have a house on the AEX zone districts.
Wow.
The ARV was originally set up because the ARE zone districts required fencing, and the public felt that fencing hampered cultivation. So they came up with the ARV that didn't allow and didn't require fencing. Well, all of those reasons have gone away now. So what we're proposing to do is combine, not eliminate, but combine the ARE, the AEX, and the ARV. All of the ones that are right now are ARV 20 and AEX 20 will become ARE 20. The ones that are AEX 40 will become ARE 40. We have made an effort to make sure that no provisions have been eliminated. So anything they can do now, they will still be able to do in the future, and it'll probably open up the ARE to allow a few more capabilities.
One thing on that, every time I open that up and see the X's and the E's and all that, I think, what are they?
It's just confusing,
It's
isn't
really
it?
confusing. This
Yeah.
is so much simpler.
Yeah.
This is, I agree.
And it'll be put into a chart style that they can see at a glance exactly what they need to do. Combining those zone districts will affect about 583 parcels, and it'll be an automatic change to the ARE zone district.
But will not, let me be very clear.
They will not lose anything.
They don't affect, in fact, if anything, they gain more property rights.
Right.
The way we review it, I don't see anybody's or becoming what's called non-conforming. We're saying property rights, but the proper zoning
We're not
term is
gonna cut
non-conforming.
nobody off with it.
I don't see anybody becoming non-conforming because of this. If they do become non-conforming, they're essentially grandfathered in, right? As long as they continue to operate, they're fine. So to me, this is one of the ones when you first look at it. And the other thing to say is chart format. In the world of zoning, the way we did our zoning code there is a little more cumbersome. Now they do zoning in charts so that you take all the stuff and put it in a handy-dandy chart, and it's a whole lot easier to read, a whole lot easier to understand.
Well, just
so
right here, it's a lot better.
say if you're shopping for a piece of property, you can look at all the different zoning on one page instead of flipping back and forth, and it's so much more. Just the organization is so much better.
I'm sorry. Brett has a question.
So when we change it from these ones into just and I like how it's simplified, but this doesn't open it up. It's still, we're still preserving the ag culture. This isn't going to be
so agriculture.
I'll subdivide it, and it's still going to be
the rules. The rules on
the
rules on subdividing property are the same; those don't change. The definition of agriculture, and again, it's still is still the same. The ability to get what's known as an ag-oriented service. There's a little bit of a change in that because wineries currently now, and we'll get to that, are done as ag-oriented services, which is complex. But say if you want to be almond processing, that's an ag-oriented service, or there are different types of agricultural processing. If you have a conditional use permit for that now, that won't be affected by that, right? This at all. You won't be. So the almond processors out there, or the other agriculturally oriented processors, won't be affected by this change. No.
Thank you. Moving on. Bless you again, man.
Okay, this goes into the
too much ag around here. You got all the blossoms, or what?
Just the reconstruction of the agricultural zone districts, which we've already talked about, so we'll move on. This slide shows you approximately where all of the AEX and the ARV parcels are located. They're all pretty much around Highway 99.
Yeah.
And that just shows you what it would look like when it becomes ARE.
Better color.
Okay, the winery ordinance. This is something new. Currently, we require a conditional use permit for all wineries. We look at it as an ag-oriented service.
And one thing I'll point out that we're trying to straighten out that's complex, under the definition of ag-oriented service, it allows you to process locally grown agricultural products. One of the complex things, and we've known for years when we approved these by CUP as an ag-oriented service because we didn't have a proper definition for the kind of wineries we're seeing. Now, this is not talking about the industrial wineries, the big ones, Canandaigua, and those are on industrial property or heavy commercial property, are not on agriculturally zoned property. Those are separate matters, and we discussed them here. We're talking about wineries that go on agriculturally zoned property. Technically, under the ordinance, the way it's written today in the conditional use permits, all of the grapes processed by that winery to make wine can only be grown locally. Well, we know that's not how the industry works, and that's not in the best interest of those folks. So one of the things we want to do is authorize those folks, and again, we're open to suggestions in that, and like I've said before, since this is something new, and Becky's going to explain to you, we'll be watching it close, and if we create any kind of problem that we believe is undue, we'll be right back before you fixing it, because we don't want ever to create a problem for people. So go ahead.
Okay, I was looking for the chart. There we go. This is a chart that basically shows 50% of the grapes or the juice that could be processed in your winery can be purchased from outside of the county. We do require that there's a certain amount of grapes grown on the property.
This is on agricultural zones.
In the agricultural zones, not in the industrial. But we've broken it down, so a micro winery only has to have a zoning permit approval, which we've never had this before. We've always required a conditional use permit. So it kind of gives a little bit lighter with staff approval instead of the planning commission to make it a little easier. They can still have their events. They can have a maximum of 5,000 square foot. They have to have at least 2 acres in production. Now, that's not going to be enough to satisfy, for the winery's needs. Right. But at least the winery is growing some grapes.
It's a floor, essentially, right? It's a floor that says that. Right. If you're a winery on agricultural property, one of the things is you still must be producing some other stuff. Now that's open to discussion. We just say that some production on site is required to be. Now, again, that doesn't apply to industrial ones where they import everything off site. Yeah.
Right. And
the notification, too. See, zoning permits or not?
Yeah, zoning permits. The reason why we went to that instead of by right is that it does require the publishing it in the paper and notification of everyone within 300 feet. So the neighbors will know what's going on and have a right to comment. And we felt that was important anytime you're putting some kind of an industry in. So we've broken it down to 3. The other 2 are a small winery and a large winery. And they both require conditional use permit approval. And it just is a matter of how much acreage they have and the volume that they're going to produce.
So it differentiates between intensities, right? The more you're doing, the more intensity it is, and it relates to other matters, yes.
Now, on the industrial zones, we have broken it down into 2 different categories. And a small winery on industrial or commercially zoned property can be done by right instead of having to go through the conditional use permit process. So we've tried to open it up a little bit. We know walking into this that there are going to have to be changes in the future. I did have one request from Mr. Walt Wieland. I talked to him late yesterday afternoon. He asked that in the narrative that we add a little statement that says over and above existing uses. So it's very clear that whatever they're doing now, they can continue to do, but anything above that, they will have to have a conditional use permit for.
So it recognizes existing operations. This is language staff supports because it recognizes existing operations and doesn't put them in a bad position. Yes.
Brett? So I see like the import from out of county, like 50% max. What if one of their wines is all Madeira-grown grapes, but then they have another wine that doesn't use any of theirs? Is it 50% per bottle or per wine type? It's just
total aggregate. It's in the aggregate.
Production. They can blend it. They can create however they want to create.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. It doesn't. Okay.
Yes, exactly.
That's probably important.
Yeah. Well, it would be unenforceable too. Yeah, we'd be over there checking everybody.
I don't think we're in the wine checking.
No. I mean, again, this is yeah, these ordinances are set up, and we many times use the term self-regulating. When you set these ordinances and put it in place, if there's a problem, we're going to know about it, right? We don't need to go out and start we don't do it now, nor are we going to start going out to wineries and chasing down. Right. That's not what we do, right? If people call us about an issue, we'll address the issue, but we're fairly certain that again, the open to discussion, but this will loosen things up. Yes.
I like the
Dave.
I like the concept of expanding liberty rather than limiting it, and I think that's exactly what
Yeah, I know.
you're attempting to do is expand liberty rather than limit liberty, and that's important.
A lot of people think that because we're proposing a winery ordinance that we want to regulate more, regulate the wineries. Really what we're trying to do is make it easier for them.
Right.
Exactly. Moving on.
Okay, we just ask that you approve this.
It's been in front of the Planning Commission. I think, obviously, we need to hear public testimony and any changes or tweaks you gentlemen may want to have. As you know, we've been working on this for a few years behind the scenes. This is one of those long-term things we've been wanting to look at. The next item, I'll say, the next item is time-sensitive because it has a state law behind it. This is a grassroots effort for us to try to make it easier and the other way we'll say it too is to generate revenue without extensive water use, right? If you can generate revenue by agritourism on your farm property and don't increase your water use, that's another wonderful thing to think about as well, right? So non-water intensive economic activities are also a way, or to increase your economic activities based on your current water budget. So that's another way if you want to just take a water look at.
Except the cleaning of your glass when you're tasting. That's the only real extra.
Yeah, sorry about that.
Is that what you wanted to say, Brett?
No. Have we discussed this with the Madera Vintners Association?
So the outreach, we've done various forms of outreach. Obviously, it's been noticed. It's been to the Planning Commission and all that. The Madera Vintners Association, we had a sit-down meeting with them. We want to thank the former Planning Commissioner, Ray Krause, for orchestrating that. We made multiple adjustments based on that. Mr. Whalen was at that meeting, Ray Krause, and Mr. Papagni. So 3 vintners were there. And then we made multiple changes based on that meeting. Mr. Whalen had a recommendation yesterday. We support. Mr. Krause is here, and he has some questions or suggestions. And we're open to these things, and we want to make this thing work. We understand that going forward there has to be interpretations, and when I say that, every district you have, industrial, commercial, has a statement that says, here's the uses or other uses as determined appropriate, similar, and like by the zoning administrator. The reason why that exists is so that I'm not always in front of you guys asking you simple zoning interpretation questions, right? The code has always been written that way. It continues to be written that way. So when an item comes to me, similar just this morning, somebody had a question, I said, no, here's how we would look at that. Well, okay, that makes sense, right? And so it has to do with how you read it, how you interpret it, and making sure that we have the flexibility because we don't know what everybody wants to do, right? And as time goes on, we try to create rules that take care of that. So we worked with, since this was something, the regulations were something that hadn't been in place like this before and didn't recognize wineries. We met with the Vintners Association. We've heard their input. We've made changes. We're willing to make more changes, quite frankly. We sent this to the Madera County Farm Bureau. Actually, Madera County Farm Bureau was involved in this effort back in 2013 when we started with it. Most recently, with the new staff they have there, Mr. Trieber has had outreach there, and both have been sent written correspondence and telephone correspondence to the Farm Bureau. So I just wanted to make sure, again, you can never have enough outreach, but we believe we put the word out there. We believe we've heard the input, but we exist to take public input. So let's suppose in 2 months somebody points out something really big, and in 2.5 months we'll be back in front of you straightening it out.
David.
Yeah, I'm ready to move when you
take it out to public. And then also, so you got the comments out from the Vintners president already in here?
So yes, sir, Chairman. We made several adjustments already based on what the Vintners told us. The one that came up
in the thing. We don't have to add it
prior to it going to the public. So this is a month ago or so. And then the tweak that came last night, Becky and I support, and so does Matt. So we would love to make that a part of the proposal.
So you want part of the motion?
Yes, that'd be great. We support that, and any other public comment you may. Well, any other public comment you may receive or not.
Yeah. Okay. I'm going to open up to the public. Anyone from the public have anything to say on this? See nobody running up here, we'll bring it back to the board. David?
I move that we approve the zoning and ordinance text change, including the amendment presented this morning by staff, and the text change to CZ number 2014-012 to amend Title 18.
Second.
Okay, Rhonda?
Call for the vote. Supervisor Rogers?
Yes.
Supervisor Fraser?
Yes.
Supervisor Poitras?
Yes.
Supervisor Wheeler?
Yes.
Vote passes 4-0, one absent.
Can we, is there any, any ordinance on kennels next to restaurants? Is that, can we look at that sometime?
I will refer that to Dexter Marr and have him take a look at that, yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Kennels next to restaurants.
Sounds specific.
Although, I'll tell you, there's
a possibility. I talked to Matt about it.
There is a specific thing in zoning that they joke about.
Too late for the public comment, Tracy. You got to wait next time.
So there's a specific thing they talk about in zoning, and it's a cartoon where they show a nursery next to a dingo kennel. Also known as incompatible land uses.
Okay. Item B. Ron.
B, Community and Economic Development Department, Planning Division, hearing to consider a proposal by the County of Madera for a zoning ordinance text change to amend Title 18 to include revisions to the definitions related to housing, residential zone districts for increased clarity, and change the name of a second single-family dwelling to an accessory dwelling unit as per state law.
Thank you, Chairman. Members of the board, again, this is a little bit time sensitive. The state law was passed last year that sort of removed the ability for local jurisdictions to prohibit what we call second dwelling units or granny flats. We're renaming them to accessory dwelling units as per the state law, which, by the way, the Madera County never had a prohibition. Back in 2006, there was a state law that says you have to allow them in certain places. We always have. If you have 1 acre of land, you've always been able to do that second single family. One thing we're cleaning up here is to make guest. It was funny. It was easier to do a second single family residence than to do a guest house. A guest house is less tentative than a second house. So we're also straightening that out, making that a little bit easier, taking this opportunity where the state directs us to change our ordinances, to look at the rest of the ordinances and maybe make it a little more, bring a little more sense and a little more, dare I say, common sense to zoning, because it doesn't exist in most zoning. So we try to bring some understanding that guest houses and that, and some definitions that are antiquated that are taken care of. And with that, I'll give you Becky Beavers.
Senate Bill 1069, Chapter 720, was signed by the governor September 27th, 2016, to change the name of the second unit to accessory dwelling unit. It prohibits imposition of parking standards under specific circumstances, revises requirements for approval of the accessory dwelling unit application, and a couple of other things that really don't affect us because we were already doing it the correct way. The guest house. Now, currently, we allow a guest house of 1,200 square foot. That's a pretty good sized guest house. I'm proposing, or we are proposing, that we restrict that to 750 square feet. This is not a dwelling unit. It is not for permanent occupancy. It does not have a kitchen. It can have a wet bar, 10 square feet of surface area for counter. It can have a small sink and a refrigerator with a volume of less than 5 cubic feet, no stove. So this is simply for guests.
Okay, Becky, on that, does that eliminate that second home?
No. This is no. This is
okay.
So what we're doing is essentially a guest house is another way to look at. What we're saying is a guest house is less intensive than a second home.
Right. Exactly.
So the way the ordinance was, a second home in some places was allowed by right, but a guest house had to get a zoning permit. So it didn't. It's less intensive. So it seemed to be a. We're actually straightening that up, but we're putting a rule on a guest house because here's what happens. When you put a guest house in, you have to pay school fees because it's residential space. It's essentially like a detached bedroom, right? Yeah. You can look at it as a detached bedroom. Some people treat it that way, right? So that maybe an older family member or who knows? Maybe that's where the a craft room is and those things. So they're used as residential occupancy and treated as residential occupancy.
Under 500 square feet, then you generally each school district evaluates that and weighs it.
Yes, so impact fees for schools are a different matter. Some districts have an exemption for that.
Right.
The way that's implemented is prior to any kind of building permit that's subject to that kind of fee, you would have to bring us something from the school district, yes.
Right. And I think the definitions are really important in that regard, too. This is almost like a detached bedroom.
Essentially, it's a detached sleeping room. It's literally, it's meant to be a part of the original dwelling unit, but it could be attached, it could be detached, in that way. That's why we say no stove, because the definition, when you get a stove, now you're a dwelling unit, yes.
Right.
However, the guest house is not for permanent occupancy. It's not supposed to be an area that you live in permanently. It will be allowed by right in all zone districts. The next element is something new, and it's specifically for the problem that you guys were just discussing. Every week, 2 or 3 times a week, we have somebody come in who wants to have a hobby room, a dance studio, an office detached from their home. Well, I'm calling this the accessory living space. And this would be just that, detached from the home, an open floor plan. It can have a bathroom, but no defined walls other than a large, and it'll be limited to 500 square feet. But that's a pretty good sized bedroom for your teenage son, or a hobby room, or an art studio. We really do need this.
This is one where people are coming to us and we're having to tell them no. But you know how I feel about saying no.
Sure.
It's not one of my most favorite things to do. I make Becky and Matt do it, actually. I can't say it. But yeah, this is one where we haven't been accommodating the public in a way I think we should. But.
And just to piggyback on that, we see a lot of this occurring in the new development in the master plan communities, right? A lot of them have the ability for a little optional room. This really would address those issues throughout the county, not just in those master plan communities.
David.
Yeah, I think it's again you're on the right track, expanding personal freedoms, personal property rights. That's a very, very important thing. Why did we come up with the figure of 500 square feet, the limitation on that?
I did research into what other counties were doing, and this was an average of what they're doing. Some of them are as small as 450 square feet. Some are as large as 600, but it's right around that area, and I just picked an average of it.
Is it possible to base it on the existing square footage, a percentage of the existing square footage, rather than limiting the square footage? Because you look at, like, somebody wants to add a pool room as an example.
Yeah, cabana.
A great example of that. It's going to serve one function, and that's people are going to go in there and you can either play pool or you have a pool room where you change your clothes and go out and swim in a pool, whatever.
Well, the short answer is yes. There's no restriction on that. So you could use it as a percentage of the primary residence. Right. The only thing is then you're doing math, which opens up arguments. But anytime you have to do math, it opens up an argument. But is it implementable? Yes, it's possible. It's implementable, and if you wanted to go that way, because I can see the issue, right? I mean, we've seen some of these houses, and some of them are in District 3, just on the edge of the city there. Some of these fairly nice, large houses that are going in, and in and around the city, where the house is 12,000 square feet, right? So if you did a percentage, I mean, bigger than that, some of them. So if you limited their pool house to 500 square feet, they might have an issue with that.
It may not fit on their property by setbacks and what have you, but I think that issue will take care of itself by the size of the land. So if a person, my thoughts are, if a person has 5 acres or 10 acres and they want to expand they want to do a pool room. I'm just thinking out loud. They want to do a pool room, and they have 5,000 square foot house, and they not to exceed 25% of the living square footage of the house, and that would be, I don't know what's 25%. That's 1,250. So if you had
see, math's not a problem for bankers.
If you had,
we'll have to call Supervisor
smaller
Poitras
house,
every
2,000 square feet, that would be a much smaller room, and you'd end up with the 500 that you were asking for originally. That's just my thoughts.
Yeah, I mean, 10% is probably...
People tend to build proportionally, you know what I'm saying?
Oh, no, I understand. 10% is probably easier to do the math on and understand, but whatever part of the motion, if you'd like to make it part of the motion, we're happy to make that. Of course, we got a little more to do.
Well, I'd like to have your thoughts on that before I, assert myself on it.
Well, while Becky's finishing the presentation, I'll do some thinking.
Good.
We're also proposing to reorganize the residential zones into a chart style. Hopefully, we'll be able to go through all of the zone districts before the end of this next year, fiscal year, and get them all into a more understandable format to help the public and the staff to choose the correct zone district for the correct operation. And with that, we would recommend approval. Thank you.
You do, huh? Great presentation.
Thank you.
The whole team. We'll open it up to the public now. Does anyone from the public have anything to say on this? I don't see nobody jumping up, so we'll bring it back to the board. And what's your pleasure?
I'd like to make a motion that we approve this item, CZ number 2016-012, to amend Title 18, include the revisions and definitions relating to housing, and with an amendment to allow the utility,
accessory living
So-
space.
accessory living space.
So we would recommend that there would be because if you're on a 1,000 square foot house too, so we would say allowed at a minimum of 500 square feet, but not to exceed 10% of the structure.
Okay.
Because if we do 10%, that's common with other zoning definitions. So say if you're in a 12,000 square foot house, that would allow you a 1,200 square foot again, you can make the number higher, but that's consistent with other zoning. So put a floor for a small house, a minimum of 500 and a maximum of not to exceed.
What if someone wants to do a 250 square foot one?
No, they're allowed to do 250.
By right, they can do the 500.
Yeah, up to 500, up
They
to a
can do
minimum
up
of 500. Yeah.
Plus 10% more
Yes.
of the structure.
Yeah, whichever's greater.
Whichever's greater.
Whichever's greater.
Okay, so if they had a 4,000 square foot house, they can do the 500, plus they can do an additional 400? Is that what you're saying?
Well, in one structure now, you're allowed to have multiple. Are we allowing multiple accessories? So that would be, again, that's where the minimum would be 500 based on, if you're tying it to the size of the house, 400 by the 10%, 500 because you set a floor, because it really, 400 square foot seems a bit restrictive, right? Just
Yes.
So 500 feet.
Minimum.
10%, is that okay?
Or 10%, whichever's greater. Or if you want to go with a higher number, Supervisor.
Yeah, I like the percentage to be up there a little bit more.
I would just add to the discussion as well that nothing would preclude an individual, for example, to come in and say, if it's 10%, they can build 1,200 square foot, but they want a 1,500 square foot. There's an application process. It would be a variance from that size. So it doesn't restrict their ability, right? They would just have to go through a variance application process.
Then I'll make the motion to read 500 square feet or 20%, whichever is greater, of the existing residence. And that gives us a little parameter.
Got a second?
Second. I think it should be 18%, but 20.
Call for the vote. Supervisor Rogers?
Yes.
Supervisor Frazier?
Yes.
Supervisor Poitras?
Yes.
Supervisor Wheeler?
Yes.
Vote passes 4-0 with one absent.
I want to thank staff. That's excellent thinking, and I appreciate your input on that last item.
And one step ahead. And then one other thing, while we're on this now, and while we're doing these, and we've been doing these ever since I've been elected, so it's been really nice updating this and making it better for our public to be able to do what they want to with their property. But the next thing is I really want you guys to work on is which is the definition is really antiquated as far as I'm concerned, is where you have to build a house before you put a shop or a garage on. So I really want you guys to work on that and bring that back to us as soon as possible.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Okay, moving on to regular session, item A.
7A, Social Services Department.
Thank you guys very much.
Presentation of proclamation naming March 2017 as Professional Social Worker Appreciation Month. Whereas social workers provide valuable services to empower all members of society to enhance their lives. And whereas social workers have the education and experience to guide individuals, families, and communities through complex issues and choices. And whereas social workers help people at every stage of life function better in their environments, improve their relationships with others, and solve personal and family problems. And whereas social workers are highly trained, hardworking, dedicated professionals. And whereas social workers celebrate the courage, strength, and determination of the human spirit throughout their careers. Now therefore be it proclaimed that the Board of Supervisors of the County of Madera, State of California, does hereby proclaim March 2017 as Professional Social Worker Month and call upon social worker employers to recognize their staff's accomplishments with a gesture of appreciation.
Hub Walsh with the Department of Social Services, and Karen Fenda.
Yeah.
She was afraid I was going to make her speak, so she was hiding behind them.
Come on, I want to hear you speak. Welcome back, Hub, to Madera
Thank you
County.
very much. Most of you I know from other lives, and so it's nice to be back helping during this transitionary period. National Professional Social Work Month is really an opportunity for social workers across the country to turn the spotlight on the profession and highlight the contributions they make to our community. The Department of Social Services has over 65 dedicated social workers, social work supervisors, and program managers who support adult protective services, in-home supportive services, and child welfare services. We, as we appreciate you, are grateful for the hard work they do and commitment to serving our community. Today, we have 4 social workers who are kind of representing our department, and they are joining us, and they asked not to speak, so I will. Wilma Dunn from our Adult Protective Services, Sandra Lumen-Lee from IHSS, Lucille Aleman from Child Welfare, and Beverly Webb from Child Welfare Services. With my background in social work, we really do thank you and your colleagues for the work you do in our community every day. So thank you so much. And thank you for this.
Sorry you had to wait so long, but we had to do the public hearings first. But you got to see what we have to do every day. So, and thank you for your service. It's one of the most important things we do in this county. So,
right.
And you guys want to come down? We'll get a picture of you with you. Thank you, Melissa. Could you send me one of those, please? Okay, item, get my glasses on. B.
7B, Community and Economic Development Department, Planning Division. Discussion and direction to staff of the status of the temporary impact fee reduction.
The Norm, Matt, and Becky show today.
Yeah, I know.
Yep, it's their day today.
My apologies. So many on the agenda here. Chairman, members of the board, before you is the actually the annual update on this. So for several years during the recession, there was a reduction in both application fees and impact fees. A couple of years ago, I worked with the board, and we went back to our application fees, and just as a differentiation, application fees are what pay for the staff's time to do the work. Impact fees are what pays for facilities, roads, library, sheriff, parks, and there's different impact fees. So currently, we went back on the application fees, and we called them right sizing them, right? In many ways, staff even believed they were too high in some of them with the reductions and that. So we put them in a range that we thought was, and almost all of them basically were reduced for the most part. One or two were raised, and one or two were added that we just didn't have a fee for, right? We were basically not capturing a revenue, which is important for us. So we've looked at that, and we've really hadn't had to make much tweaks in the CED side on the way those fees are going, and they really seem to be working pretty well. On the impact fee side, the board has continued that program, and let me just be clear about a few things. The program that's in place today is and the decision today is whether or not to continue it or to modify it or to do anything, right? And so you've had updates as time has gone on in this impact fee program. Let me be clear. The impact fee program currently in place, that has been in place, does not and has not applied to the new homes being built in Riverstone.
Make that real clear.
To make that real clear.
The DOT report came out Saturday and said that we have gave away the barn on all those big developments. Those big developments have paid more than any development in Madera County ever in the history of it, including fire, sheriff, schools, roads, and water. And we've never, ever gave them a break on any of the facility fees, any of the fees. They've never got a break on.
So, and I wanted to be clear with that. So what we're talking about, the program that's out there now applied to commercial and industrial, and had applied to residential projects that were essentially created by parcel map. And very small projects, right? Resident countywide. 4 smaller, right? So currently, Becky has a presentation for you. I'm just giving you a little history of what brought us here today. So the request today from staff is it's now at the every year you decide whether or not to continue with this or not continue with this. I will say in general there is one issue out there on the road impact fee side, but we can get to that as we get to the presentation. Thank you.
One real quick item too. These monies cannot be used for anything else but what they're designated for the new development.
So for capital facilities only. You can't use this money for staff and the impact fees. You can't use this money even for repairs. It is for constructing new facilities is the primary use of it, right? It has some limitations. CAO?
That's correct. And adding capacity only, so we can't address deficiencies.
Yes. Right. Okay. From the developers.
That's correct.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, I did that. Thank you for the clarification.
Okay, this year we've seen.
Put your mic a little bit closer, please.
Oh, I'm sorry. Since the beginning of 2015-16 fiscal year, the planning division permit activity has slowly increased. However, the job types have changed. We're looking at larger jobs, and the revenue has increased substantially. The revenue increase is not only due to the permit activity, but it's also due to the environmental impact reports that are in progress and code enforcement activities, including the abandoned home program. And here you're seeing the permit activity year over year. And
are those all permits?
This is planning division.
Planning division, yes, it is all permits that we take in.
All permits that they take in through planning.
Yes.
And the planning. So what you'll see here is you'll see other activity for wells, septic, building permits. That's all a part of this presentation. Okay. Yes.
Mm-hmm. And this shows you a breakdown of year over year the permit revenue that we've taken in. Now this just addresses it addresses all of the revenue that we've taken in, including the violation penalties and.
So the red is.
The red is this fiscal year, just through December,
and it shows that the big developers are paying this money because they're the ones that's building the houses right now.
Actually, I'd say a fair amount of our revenue is permits, but a fair amount comes in over code enforcement activity. People basically who ignore us. And so years ago, we may have issued a lien on a property from someone who ignored us, and to release those liens, it catches up, right? So on the abandoned homes program, last year, just on abandoned homes, we collected, because of years of issuing citations, $500,000.
No kidding.
Yeah, all from banks, not from private citizens, all from banks. My apologies.
We changed that ordinance for that, remember?
Your board did that in 2011, and what happened is we kept working this program. City of Madera has a robust program as well. We kept working these programs, and to release these liens, they have to pay the deal, and there really is not much there's not much negotiation. They just pay it.
That's true.
Exactly. Moving on, sorry.
Well, it is, and I mean, this is an issue of blight, right? I mean, a big part of our code enforcement program is trying to make the neighborhoods better, and one of the things is if you don't respond, if you respond to us, you're not going to get a big fine or even any fine, depends on your response. If you ignore us, then the bill runs up.
It's not just about revenue. That particular issue is about blight.
Oh, it's a major issue.
Yeah, communities.
The folks who aren't boarding up homes, taking care of the yards, that is a major concern in all of your districts, but in your more populated areas especially, like Madera Acres, yes.
This slide actually breaks down the planning division permits, and you can see that general plan amendments, lot line, parcel maps, subdivisions, setback variances, they all increased during the 15-16 fiscal year. Building division, their building permit activity decreased about 9% during the 15-16 fiscal year, but their revenue increased about 17%. So that means the type of work they're doing brought in more revenue. We had more new houses or something like that brought in more revenue.
And as many of you know, I know Chairman had an issue with a constituent recently. Building permits are based on the valuation of your construction. So it depends on what you're building is what the permit is. So which really means we have more commercial projects and more high-value projects going in is what it is.
Beautiful.
Like I said, their revenue actually increased 17%, as you can see right here. And this shows a breakdown of the specific type of permits. So you can see that electrical permits and minor permits, which is basically solar permits, over-the-counter permits, re-roof, swimming pools, those are the type that we actually had an increase. Where the single-family dwellings, we have an increase this fiscal year, which was just through December. So you can see there's been quite an influx on single-family dwellings in 2017. Environmental Health Department or Division, they, on their well permit activity, they have a decrease of 18%, which is really not unusual in a wetter year. It's really the dry years where we have more well permit activity. And the septic tank permit activity has really increased about 48%.
What do you think that is?
I'm suspecting it has to do with the drain well as well, and as Dexter's listening, he'll rush down here and tell me. But he already answered the kennel question, by the way, from earlier. He already gave me an answer. But I suspect this combines all their permits, and the drain wells are considered a form of so there's a lot of those happening. Yes.
Yeah, there's a lot of them. There's no. I think you'll probably see a flat in terms of the revenue because those were zero. Or we zeroed that one out just to get those drain wells in, correct?
We reduced it. So we made a reduced fee. There's a reduced fee, and then there are some nonprofits that are assisting people with the fee. So what the county did was reduce the fee. Yes.
And you are correct. The well permits have...
There are quite a few folks using it, yes.
Revenue for the well permits increased by about 18%, but septic permits decreased. I'm sorry, I've got that backwards. Revenue increased for septic for 18%, but decreased 27% for well permits. The Environmental Health Division also tracks the difference between agricultural and domestic wells, the number. And out of 166 well permits, 74 were agricultural permits, and 92 were domestic.
Wow, that probably goes along with the rain.
Yeah, if you look at the previous years when the drought, you see the ag was a higher percentage, right? I mean, we had issues everywhere with dry wells, residential and ag, but you can see the change in the hydrology there.
They also track what they're taking in on an increase well, the pipe size, the large diameter wells, and they've taken in $70,000 so far this fiscal year just on the larger pipe diameter wells.
And that was a change you made in 2014, your board, where the well permits were a flat fee and were like $200. I mean, it was woefully inadequate. So we set the base fee at a certain level, and then we did a increase based on casing, right, and certain size.
Yeah.
That additional surcharge is earmarked to help with conservation programs and has been used that way. We have several conservations encouraging both on residential and other properties.
So would that money be used in the future for recharge basins?
Well, so the money comes in and it isn't reserved. So it's every fiscal year it comes in and it isn't reserved for those such things. So it's only on that, and it isn't enough really to do those types of capital improvements. And of course we've had that. Julia Berry, she very much wants to eye that dollars and wants to get her hands on it. And Dexter and her are always arguing over who's going to get the dollars. But I mean, so there isn't. Yeah, there really isn't enough generated from there to do capital improvement projects, but there is enough generated from there to pay attention more to conservation programs and also maybe do some of the forward planning that needs to be done on basins. Yes.
Okay.
On the Fire Prevention Division, they have experienced a 17% increase on permit activity and a 31% increase on revenue. Development impact fees have increased by 59%, probably primarily to the Riverstone activity that's going on.
Right.
And the road impact fees have decreased approximately 14%. And that's it.
Again, there are several, again, we give you the activity just so and we've always done that, generally know what's going on in all the regulatory agencies, right, that's there. The road commissioner is here and is not looking at me right now, Ahmad. The roads commissioner is here and able to speak about that, and the CAO is also here to speak about these programs and what they mean. So in general, we're not seeing, I'll just make this statement, we're not seeing a significant change in activity because of this program, but you've heard me say that every time I'm here. So,
but it could decrease in the activity if we raise them.
We wouldn't be raising them, we'd be reinstating them.
Right.
Yes, sir. So anyway, with that, I'm finished with staff presentation unless Public Works or CAO's office has anything. Thank you.
Yeah, I have a couple of concerns that really stick out in my mind as far as impact. We continue to get less and less money from the state regarding road repair. In fact, they're eluding us to the tune of $1.5 million this year, and we've already have decreased road funds from previous years. I think we're down to what we were at $5 million a year, and now with this looting, we're at 3.5. Is that right?
So it's continuing to go down, and as Ahmad comes forward, I can tell you right now, Brad Phillips has told me we have 6 positions on the road crews, six maintenance positions held open because we can't afford to fill them in the road fund.
That's not a good thing.
Yeah.
Anyway,
good morning, Supervisor Rogers.
Yeah.
Yes, that's true. Besides the road positions, we also have positions in the office here, in admin, engineers, senior engineers, and what have you, that we held open. What we are getting now is roughly about $280,000 a month from the highway user tax.
That's what I thought.
So we're almost decreasing 20 to 25% annually in that matter.
That is incredible decrease. That is just, given the nature of our roads right now, knowing that they're below 66% on the pavement condition index on the average, that is an abysmal amount of money to take care of 1,500 miles of roads. And we've got to find a nexus to change that. The other thing that I see as a large concern, and I don't know that there's any impact fee presently associated with this, that we need to look at it, a way to address the problem, and that is, and we have through grants before, and I'm talking about flood control channels. Never has that become more important than this year. And the work that's already been accomplished with the $9 million DWR grant spread out over the various tributaries and the Arundel removal and the continued work that we do there. We're not in a position to be able to fund any of those that removal in the future, and we don't want to go backwards on that.
Yeah, but that's road stuff, so. And that's not this fee for this, redundant stuff.
Yeah, I'm just saying it's something we need to look at as far as there is no impact fee.
Let's stay on that right
now. And it'd be nice to see an impact fee for that.
Let me give you an example of a conversation I had yesterday with the Pace family, and many of you know them. We're working with Julia. I mean, this is the four of us are together, me and Matt and Ahmad and Julia. We always come together in anything to do with water, and whether it's agricultural development or urban development or rural development. So we all met with the Pace family, and you know them. We are proposing exactly that on some of these projects, a fee program by which per dwelling unit or per acre, when you're urbanizing, that you're again, we have a water balance requirement, and we don't have great solutions on how you achieve it, right? And other than going to purchase surface water, which is more and more complex. So we exactly are discussing that with the Pace family, and we would love, Julia is working actively countywide to look at what is the most appropriate way for us to fund, for first of all, and we're having a meeting, I think, tomorrow with Chowchilla Water District. How are we going to fund a several million-dollar effort countywide to do groundwater sustainability plans, right? The county is going to have to participate in plans and pay its fair share. But the thing we talked about yesterday was exactly on point. How do we use new large development, and then how do we apply that across the board to everybody is when you build a house, you're going to pay a certain amount of fees, and the Pace family actually brought it to us that we would, on their project, entertain a fee, and that fee would go directly towards capital improvements for water recharge infrastructure. Right. So we are actively searching out, and impact fees are one way of looking at it.
That is a direct nexus to, in my opinion, not only my opinion, but engineering and scientifically, when water travels down the canals, the sloughs, it recharges perennially. So there is no question that it does have an impact, and I like that idea. I really do. I'd like to see even cofferdams, in the future.
I'll just say that, Chairman, I know he wants to move on, but you will see Julia and us in front of you very shortly, both in public work, in public settings, but also here in front of the board, talking about and generating ways to get that activity. I just got to give a plug to Julia, and you know how I talk about revenue all the time. She gets it. She gets it. Because if you don't have revenue coming in, it makes life a little more difficult. Yes.
Eric.
Thank you, Supervisor Wheeler. I just wanted to bring up some figures, just so that your board is aware of the amounts and kind of generally where they go if you choose to continue to waive these fees. We collect just over $1,000 on each single family unit that goes straight to public protection, which could go for the new D8 probation facility. Sorely needed. We have a whole list of capital projects that are underfunded. $445 goes to libraries. $589 goes right to parks, $145 goes to sheriff patrol and investigation, and $716 goes to fire. That's on every single residential family unit. So these are dollars that we need for our capital projects. Just keep that in mind.
Robert.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My question is, I'd like to maybe just get a little bit of history about, when the impact fees were reduced and by how much and so forth, and what the reasons were. And then I'd like to follow up on a few comments.
Yes, sir. So I can't recall the year, but during the recession, 2010, 2011, there was a reduction of 2/3 of both application fees and impact fees. So you still paid 1/3 of each, right? We, on the application fee side, even though we were getting a small amount, we said, let's adjust those and make them correct. On the impact fee side, as we sit here today, it isn't a total waiver, it's a reduction. On commercial and industrial and on small residential, they only pay 1/3, actually. So there is some fee being charged, but it's a reduction. That's the current program that's in place we're here to ask about. So in, I would say, 2014, on the application side is when we adjusted those and took away that reduction. So it's back to the adopted fee, the full adopted fee. What we have on the impact fee side, the board decided to continue that fee reduction of 2/3. Again, it's reduced by 2/3, not a full reduction, right? And so that's where we stand today. That is done annually. We come back and do kind of quarterly updates. I can, there's 4 quarters in a year, but I can definitely make it 3 times for some reason. But anyway, we update the board regularly on the status of these things, right? And that's why you see these charts that we do on a regular basis. So that's the history of where it was at the time. We dealt with the application fees and got those adjusted, and that program has continued since then with the 2/3 reduction, and it's what we're here today to discuss.
On those impact fees, we did was try to give a little stimulus out here for the small person. We exempted all large developments, anything over 4 lots. We tried to do some stimulus to see.
I misspoke. Let me tell them that.
Okay,
that was the
gotcha.
whole idea of it. Okay. And that money, I mean, like Eric said, it's, whose phone was that?
It's gone.
$10, honey.
You get a free flu shot this year.
Yeah, but that's what it was for, and it's right now it's $3,000 something, and we collect about $1,000.
Actually, let me apologize, Chairman and Supervisor Poitras. My great staff just came and reminded me I misspoke. So the reduction for commercial and industrial is 100%.
Yeah, that's what it was.
For residential on 4 or less, it's 2/3. I misspoke, and my apologies.
I didn't remember my.
No, I misspoke.
My vote.
Well, so I'd like to further. Go ahead. My comment is that. I know that a lot of times people look at impact fees as almost like penalties. Government's penalizing me for building and it's penalizing, private industry. But I think that the reason we call it an impact fee is because building and construction and activity causes impacts that government has to take on as far as continuing, to ensure that our infrastructure is maintained. And so it's been my experience that I haven't seen impact fees.
You can't use none of this money for any of the infrastructure stuff.
No.
Right? Okay.
Well, yeah, but I mean for future.
Right.
Yeah, for future. And so what you're doing is you're mortgaging your future by waiving, continuing to waive, these particular fees. And so, and I have yet to see somebody not coming into the city of Madera because of an impact fee. And I'll give an example. A lot of times, Sanger has been given as this great mecca of economic development and freedom and waiving fees and so forth. But every time I look at an article in a Fresno Bee that trumpets something that Sanger's bringing in, there's not one that hasn't already located in the city of Madera without a fee waiver. And one of the big ones was the FQHC, which we have one, Camarina. They came in, built a $5 million facility without the waiver of impact fees, which, again, there's impacts because of that particular building. Well, Sanger, said, hey, wonderful, we waive these fees, and look who's coming in to Sanger to build a medical facility with FQHC. Well, and again, every single one, it's not about, in commercial business, it's not so much about the impact fee that's going to prevent somebody from coming in. It's the ongoing opportunity of making money. That's what people are looking at. It's a one-time fee. It's more about, so I think here in the county and in the city and so forth, it's more about what activity and opportunity are these businesses going to have ongoing. It's not so much about the initial impact fee. I mean, we could give the land away and we could pay people to come here, but if they don't see an ongoing benefit from being here, they're not going to come. So I guess I'm for one, I think we should revisit that waiver issue.
Okay, Brett.
Yeah. So on this, I voted for this fee waiver, and largely because you saw so many stories about Sanger, and they're telling, and really they weren't economic development gurus, they were marketing gurus about always blowing their own horn and saying, look at all the great things that are happening in Sanger, and attributed all their success to this fee waiver, which that wasn't what drove all the business there. Having gone to many meetings in terms of economic development with site selectors, and we have this list of all the things that we provide, and one of them is, we have no fees for if you bring your business here, you can, we have a fee waiver. And every single time they glance over and it's like, okay, and then they go down, but what they really are looking for is, do you have the infrastructure to support my business? Do you have the trained workforce that supports my business? Will my business make, like you said, make money here? And the fee waiver, it doesn't get anybody off the fence. And even the people that are saying, we need to keep this, I've got a project, and my project, it's going to come through, and I need this. The only way that I can do it is with this fee waiver. But then they never pulled a permit. They never finish off their project. So if we're looking to get rid of this fee waiver, which I'm starting to lean toward because it hasn't generated, there hasn't been this substantial amount of new permits pulled for these commercial and industrial products that we're trying to bring in here, it's less than what it was before we put in the waiver. Isn't that correct?
I would characterize it as I don't see the impact fee reduction as having a significant effect for or against, to tell you the truth. I don't see it as it being a strong hindrance or a strong support. That's my opinion. I understand it.
So we tried it, and it was something that we put out there. We did market it when we talked to site selectors. It didn't move the needle for anybody. But to those people that have that next great project that they've been talking to us about for the last 2 years, I say we let them know in 6 months this fee waiver goes away. If you've got a legitimate project and you want to save that money right now, then get it in the hopper. Come through, pull permit, and put because right now it's just this, this infinite timeline where people are like, well, there's no sense of urgency to me. I mean, it's going to be there. They're always going to keep voting in this fee waiver, and that's just something that's there. And so I say we give them, look, you've got 6 months. If you've got a project, bring it. If you don't, we told you. That's kind of where I'm at on it.
And I guess I would just add, Chairman, is that this is a blanket situation, right? This is a situation where the board has directed us, and we do this on everything. If someone comes in with, a giant thing, a Yosemite-themed Bass Pro on 41, and they've got to get this done, and this, you have the authority always through ordinance.
That's one thing I was going to say. We have offered that to a couple businesses.
Yeah.
We've been in here, one not recently. We have done that.
So you have the ability always
big projects.
Through the ordinance to
this right now does not cover big projects, right? There's nothing right now they get any freebies.
Commercial and industrial, everybody does.
Everybody does.
Yeah. So if someone was trying to build a substantial commercial project currently,
right,
they would have those fees waived. Now, let's suppose in a year, this program goes away and someone knocks on the door and says, and the board just says, this is the best thing we've ever seen in our life.
Right.
You always have the authority on a project-by-project basis to waive both the application fee and the impact fee. Yeah.
And you also put it onto a church.
Yeah,
instead of
or you can require a church to pay their fees. Yes.
That's the idea of put a notice out there on the commercial stuff on big products. In 6 months, 3 months, whatever you want to do, once they start the pulling of it, it's in effect, right?
So the typical way impact fees are paid, they're paid at the issuance of building permit. There are certain instances by development agreement you pay it at occupancy, but those are only on the big projects.
Okay. So if we've done that on the commercial, then on the private, small, 4 lots or less, we keep it at that 2/3 or 1/3 even. I would go for that. But that, like you just said, either way it's not gave us a lot of money at all. because
It's not generating activity is what I'm
right,
saying, yeah.
But just like I sent you guys a copy of that, I think it was January, February, of a lady in Corso said that she couldn't find it on our webpage how much it's going to cost her to build her house. And she had heard, and then some other guy called me, and I called Matt on it, and said that that we had stopped the reduced fees on a resident, and we hadn't done that. And so that, I think, is still, because she said that she couldn't afford it then. She must not be able to afford it now. I don't know if she's come in and got a permit or not, but I told her it was still in place. And so, actually, I sent her to you, Matt, to talk to. So I really worry about the small person. The businesses, I have no problem with doing that. And if we want to do it a timeline of 3 to 6 months, I don't care about that. That's my own opinion. So anyway, is there any more that you guys got on the presentation on this?
No, staff presentation is complete, sir. Thank you.
Okay, we'll take it out to the public.
Well, David, I think.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Oh, no. You want to start before I bring it to the public?
I was going to state that I think one thing that's important to business, and I think we're doing that, evidenced by our reduction in Paperwork Act here, and that's what I would call it, our freedom efforts. I think we're deregulating heavily, and that's really important to business
We've really
to know
been
that
doing
they're
that
not
for about 6 years.
Yeah, we've been deregulating all along and cutting the red tape, and I think that's really more important to business than it is to save a one-time fee. I think that's really a critical thing.
Okay, Robert?
Yeah, and I'd just like to remind everybody, too, that commercial business, like when you build a house or build an industrial building or something, it's really difficult to get in there and say, hey, why don't you cut this or cut this, because they're all real costs that have been going up for private industry, and it's the same thing with government. It's not like, if everybody here would agree to a pay cut for the next, or level pay for the next 10 years, or something,
We did do that for almost 5 years.
5 years, but if
So
you
we did do that.
if you continue to do that, we're not going to have anybody here to provide services. So, it's just like a regular business. There's costs of doing business, and you've got the pension issues and so forth coming up. So anyway, just a reminder, it's not like any other vendor or manufacturer or whatever.
Okay, I'm going to take it out to the public. Anybody from the public got anything to say on this? Come on, staff. Somebody got to say something. Okay, what's your pleasure, board?
I move that we take staff's recommendation and bring the fees back up after 3 months to where their original adopted levels.
All fees, commercial and residential?
The commercial, and then we're talking on up to 4 units for the, we can keep that at the 1/3.
So, let's see what
I just don't want to mislead that a motion is not required, but we are giving direction to staff.
Does staff have their direction?
Well, we can do a motion.
No, sir, I apologize. I don't have clear direction from this, so what I'm hearing you say is to continue this for 3 months for the small residential and not commercial? Is that what I'm hearing? Or
Commercial would be in 3 months, it goes back up to its
statutory
normal
statutory.
Okay,
Yeah.
yes, sir.
So full fee.
Okay, in 3
after
months.
3 months.
And residential?
And the residential stay where it's at for right now, and that's for the dwellings 1 through 4?
4, yeah, so on parcel maps, 4 or less, it's reduced by 2/3. Yes.
If we reduce them by 1/3.
Oh, so you want to change it to 1/3 reduction, that's fine, yes.
Right, because excuse me, Mr. Chairman, I'd just like to mention, I think that Supervisor Rogers made a good point about, our roads in the future, and Eric as well, as far as, we need to kind of backfill. We're not getting the money from any other source. And
this can't do that.
And our residents.
This cannot use for repair of roads.
Right. We're talking about the future, though. Right. And we're talking about, they get worse and worse. We're not getting any help from the state.
So, Eric, in terms of the...
This had nothing to do with roads.
Yeah, there's a road impact fee.
There's a
yes.
road impact fee.
The road impact fee is also reduced as well,
Yeah,
yes.
but I thought we was going to put them normal.
No, sir. I mean, what's before you, and it says that there's no staff recommendation. What's before you is the program, and the staff is seeking direction, because we're at the end of the 1 year, whether or not to continue the program, alter the program. That's what we're asking for today. It would be based on the fact that we have a proposal in front of us to advance road impact fees to us by a very large development. A part of that agreement says that we have to collect the full fee. Right? So is that in place today? No. But that agreement with that large development entity says for them to advance road impact fees, we need to be collecting road impact fees.
And I thought we were redoing those road impact fees right now.
So the road impact fee program is another issue. When it was put in place, it didn't have a CPI. And that's the biggest issue, right? As the board has always said, and during my time, is whenever you do a fee, put a CPI, so we're not here in front of you guys every year. So one of the reasons we're looking at it has just been the time. It's time to look at it. And the second reason is the CPI wasn't a part of it. So it's the same fee that was adopted originally in 09 or 07.
07.
So it hasn't changed since 07.
So first thing I had to vote on 3 months in office.
Yeah. So it would be my suggestion that, that again, if we were to execute this agreement on the advancement of the road impact fees, concurrent with that, I would have an item before you, the staff would, that would eliminate that. So if today you want to continue the road impact fee reduction, if the board's will, we would propose to eliminate that when we execute the agreement for the advancement of those fees.
Okay, so have a CPI on the roads, and the roads be at 100% of what they're what we collect. After 3 months, the commercial goes back up to 100% of what we can collect statutorily. 1/3 reduction on residential 1 to 4 units. And so out of these impact fees...
Not including roads.
Not including roads. But on these impact fees, you had said a portion of it goes to protective services, fire, and
it's fire, sheriff, library, parks, and general government.
We obviously know that we're woefully underfunded in that. We just went out for a measure. Then to say that there's a reduction in these and not collecting these impact fees for fire and sheriff, I just don't think that we can do that anymore. I don't think we can afford to give these kinds of reductions anymore because of the state of our budget. When it comes to those kinds of services. So, if someone comes in, even on these residential units, 1 to 4 units, they're still creating an impact on those services that they're not paying for. So I think, again, to kind of recap, put a CPI on all of our fees. A 1/3 reduction instead of the 2/3 reduction on residential 1 to 4 units, and that will start creeping back up to full next year, I think. And then going all the way up on the commercial and industrial to 100%.
And wait until he brings back the road impact fee study to do the CPI and the whole thing.
Yes.
Yeah, well, yes, sir.
Second on that now?
I'll second that motion.
Okay. Is that okay, clear with you now?
County Council, it's not agendized to take a vote. Can we still do that?
Well, certainly, direction to staff, just to provide direction to staff.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
So motion's by Frazier, and the second was by
David.
Rogers. Call for the vote. Supervisor Frazier?
Yes.
Supervisor Rogers?
Yes.
Supervisor Poitras?
Yes.
Supervisor Wheeler?
Yes.
Vote passes 4-0 with 1 absent.
Okay, what we got? How many more items we got? You want to go to lunch and do it afterwards? Okay. We'll come back at 1:30. F up right now, so Public Works, so we can move forward. Welcome, gentlemen and boys.
7F, Public Works Department Capital Improvement Projects Division. Construction of improvements for Road 40 from Avenue 10 to Avenue 12. 1, consideration of entering into amendment to Madera County Contract Number 10643-C-2016 with Avison Construction, Inc. for construction of improvements for Road 40 from Avenue 10 to Avenue 12 in Madera County to increase the contract amount from $1,578,968 to $1,828,968. 2, consideration of approval to authorize the auditor-controller to issue payments for contingencies up to 10% of the amended agreement amount per established county policy. 3, consideration of approval to authorize the Public Works Director to solely issue and approve the contract change orders in accordance with Public Contract Code not to exceed authorized contingencies.
Good afternoon, members of the board. I'm Adel Khat, Public Works Director. With me here is Mr. Jared Carter, Deputy Director of Public Works. We're coming for this amendment for this contract because the amount of change orders exceeds the contingency of 10%. And we are here for any questions for you.
What was the purpose of the change
The
orders?
engineering, they didn't, that's what I was going to ask, actually. This is kind of crazy. The Bedrock Engineering hired Riverstone Development to do this?
It's the other way around. Riverstone hired.
Why don't they always check the soils underneath the road to do this?
Good afternoon, Chairman, members of the board. Jared Carr with Public Works. So to answer your question, Supervisor Rogers, the change orders are specifically related to design changes that have happened since the project was put into construction, either additions or revisions to drainage facilities. And then the bulk of it is related to subgrade soil conditions that we're encountering on the project that are requiring a significant amount of extra work to remediate those.
Excavation, compaction.
Correct, yeah. So basically, in the course of the work, the contractor was trying to prepare subgrade to install the base rock and paving. We ran into some conditions where we had some very soft, pumpy subgrade. We looked to explore that, found out that there was some issues under the subgrade to deal with, and so we went to the design engineer, which is Bedrock, to get some guidance and input on how to deal with that as it's his design. Unfortunately, there was no soils report done, so we didn't have a lot of information to deal with. We had to go out and get a geotechnical engineer to take a look at it and evaluate the situation and give a recommendation. So right now, the work that we're doing is proceeding in accordance with the geotechnical engineer's recommendation.
So why didn't we do that? I thought we did that on every job on the roads.
That would be correct. Typically, on a design for a project, a road project, you would do soil borings, do a soils report to understand what your underlying conditions are. However, the county did not do the design on this project. It was designed by Bedrock Engineering under contract with Riverstone Development. There was an agreement that was entered into with the county for Riverstone to provide the design for the project and the right-of-way, give us the right-of-way, and the county would...
Shouldn't Riverstone be responsible for this then? I mean, they done the design, they went and contracted us to give us a base to bid out and to get this work done.
At this point, Supervisor, we are tabulating and keeping track of all extra work that we're doing due to this lack of geotechnical report by the design engineer. If it's done properly, we would know the soil condition and what we're getting into before we advertise and go to bid. And this is what we would do if we take in the whole process.
We do all of our jobs that way. We did 200 that way.
Absolutely. But in this case...
15 that way, didn't you, when you redone that?
Absolutely. Now, also, then, since it was designed by a contract under Riverstone with Bedrock, so Bedrock is basically the engineer of record.
No, Riverstone is. They hired Bedrock to do their work.
Correct. Correct, but Bedrock is the engineer of record.
Is their stamp.
Correct. It's their stamp. And anyway, we came to a point where we need to move forward, and the best way to move forward is to go ahead and
pay for their mistakes.
Agree to hire a geotechnical to investigate and then give us their recommendation. And we would go back and forth with Bedrock. We do inform. This is their recommendation. What do you think? And they say if it's their recommendation, go for it. So,
Brett,
why did we accept the plans?
The plans, specs, and estimates, it's a complete package. It came to us as a complete package ready for bid and advertise.
But if it didn't have the soils, it wasn't a complete package. Why wasn't it sent back at that time and said, we need to have the soils?
So when we got the plans and we reviewed them, we were provided with R values for the design sections. We later found out that those were simply shallow borings that were done in just a few spots along the roadway. They didn't do a full geotechnical report.
There was some work done, just not extensive enough.
That's correct. And then the other thing is, we were told that they did, Bedrock used a soils report from a project that's not Road 40. It was the Riverstone Development, which is about a mile away from there.
Well, to me, that's totally them. They should be paying for this. I mean, that's what I think. We didn't. I mean, we accepted a thing, and they used a different road. They didn't do a complete job. They done shallow testing, like you said. When I read this last night, I put all those notes on there. I could not believe that this was coming in front of us like this, that they screwed up that bad.
Is this the errors and omissions on the... That's what I was going to say.
There are ways we can deal with this, definitely.
Bedrock won't ever do no work for Madera County no more. One way to deal with
it. I have no comments here.
Lawyer, what do you think?
Was the scope of the sponginess, the pumping? That means the soil, for those out there that aren't in engineering, the soil was spongy. It was moving. When you move, put weight over it, it would be spongy. Pumping, what we call pumping, usually the presence of some kind of water in the soil that's not drying out. So was that at a deeper level than would normally be anticipated, or was it we going to have to super excavate? How's the problem going to be remediated?
So, Supervisor, yes, the excavations that we're making right now to remediate the soil conditions are in the neighborhood of 6 to 8 feet below grade.
Deeper than usual?
There's a significant amount of water that actually continues to come into the excavations. We do have another, I guess, unique circumstance in that we have both a drinking water line and a 48-inch concrete irrigation line running under this section of road that we're dealing with.
Could it be leaks from that? Or I don't think it's an underground artesian well that's decided to come back to life.
That is something that we have considered early on and had discussions about. We have done some exploration into that. We haven't fully ruled that out at this point. However, as Ahmad mentioned, we're trying to move forward with the project because the more this sits open and is exposed, the longer it's taking and it's
So if you find that it's if it's migrating water from a leak, that's probably an extenuating circumstance beyond the ability of the original engineering to find out.
Well, not necessarily. If it's leaking new, it should have been wet then.
Yeah, you're right. It could have been.
I built 8 miles of road on that Fly-No project. Yeah. Matt knows about it.
If you did coring deep enough, you would find out.
I know. Well, what we did when the engineer come in to do the soil compactation test, if it was soft, they just kept going until they found something hard and said, okay, this here, you're going to put 2 feet of road base here, or 3 feet, whatever they had to do. I had what I had to do. And if they've done this right, when they punched a hole down there to do that test, if they went down a foot, 2 feet, or whatever they went, and it was still soft, they got to go deeper. That's just, I'm not an engineer.
Right.
Figure that out.
That's a no-brainer, isn't it?
Right.
No-brainer.
And just to clarify, when we first encountered situations, we did do that. We tried to dig deeper, and we were able to get to some areas that were a little bit stable. However, the issue is just overnight coming back, all the holes were full of water again when we came back the next morning. So there was a significant amount of water coming back into them.
What I'm saying is that engineer, Bedrock, should have seen that. If they'd have done the right amount of testing along there, well, you said they didn't do it on that road. They done it on another road. I don't know. Lawyer.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I had a chance to speak with Norm, and he reminded me that Dale from our office has been involved. I think a demand letter, Norm, if you'll correct me, a demand letter, or at least some initial correspondence has been sent to Bedrock under their errors and omissions insurance. And so the county will be pursuing any available claims against them.
We'll have to.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Right now, if the direction from the board is, and we're certainly pursuing with staff any potential recovery against the design engineer for this. So,
well, there's $280,000 or something, I think.
Almost $300,000.
Yeah, close to
Well, we're expecting to be at $290,000.
It's interesting that they wanted to raise the price and come after that, because it's a flawed design based on flawed information that they were responsible for.
I mean, don't you?
I agree.
Don't you agree that if we can prove that they done the testing on the wrong road or used a design from another road, then we paid them to do a complete package for us to go out to bid with.
Certainly, and that's why I think we would certainly pursue any potential recovery we would have against them for any faulty design or errors and omissions in their design that they provided to us.
So what you're asking for us is to fund this until we get through the litigation with them?
Basically, we need to move forward because we will exceed the 10%.
Poor people out there.
Correct. Because we exceeded the 10% contingency, we have to come here and amend the contract.
There are other electronic ways of finding out whether those pipes are leaking, right?
That's only $150,000
We need to go after that.
for 10%.
Yeah, Supervisor, we are in discussion with Root Creek about doing some further testing on that 48-inch irrigation line to try and determine exactly if there's leaking and where it might be. So hopefully we can get some more information from that as we get further in that.
It could be a spring too.
It could be. It happens.
But we need to know that for the future.
Yeah.
Because if we have a spring or a leaking irrigation pipe underneath a road, it will erode quickly.
Well, look what happened down here on you guys' road, right down here by your bank. That pipe was leaking. Look what happened.
Yep.
The damn thing fell in.
Chairman, members of the board, if I could just address a couple of things there. We absolutely learn from every experience we have, right? Constant improvement is something I believe in, and my managers hold their hands over their ears because I say it so much, right? What could we have done better? What could we have done better? What role did we have in the outcome? We could do this better. Partly is when we're doing a public-private partnership in any way, shape, or form, whether it's a minor one like this or a bigger one, we have to learn from the issues. We have to learn how to get it right when we go forward. We have to learn how to make it better next time. We do need to proceed with this. As you gentlemen well know, we've got open construction out there that needs to be done. There are absolutely lessons to be learned. And to be, what does that come down to? It's an issue of accountability, right? Are you accountable for what you were supposed to be responsible for? Right. And there's enough of that to go around. But working with County Counsel's office, we will pursue any issues that are done incorrectly here. But the one thing is to learn, and I try to step back and talk to the Public Works folks or the CED folks is, boy, what was it about this process we didn't do correctly, and what are we going to do next time? Because public-private partnerships happen a lot more often than not these days, right? It's a way of making things happen and making things go forward. So absolutely, Board, do we need to learn from this? And there are some issues on how it was set up. There are some issues on how it was structured, and I've addressed those issues, and I'll continue to address those issues to make sure that at the end of the day, the county can never be left holding the bag, whether that's financially or with risk or responsibility. We always have to make sure that the county is looking out for the public, for the health and safety of the public, but also we have to look at watching our pocketbook and making sure we're doing wise decisions with our money. Thank you.
Yeah, 1 second, Brett.
Should this have been a public works project?
I can tell you that this project was initiated under different management. Under the current Director of Public Works and the current agency head, which is me, I wouldn't have pursued this project, no.
David?
Yeah, I only have one more question, and that was that when the design was presented to us, were we aware at that point that the information was not based on the
right road?
The right road.
No.
I think that's an important point. I want to hear it from staff.
Supervisor, no, we were not aware that this information was not available or that there was not a SOLS report for the project.
I would insist that there was an intent to deceive then, and I think that that's unacceptable, period, from that side. So, yeah, thank you for that.
Yeah. When you hire a lawyer, it's just the same thing. When you hire an engineer to engineer that road, and they bring in stuff from a different one, that is about as bad as you can get. That's just like you go into a court with a hearing on Tom Wheeler, and you have all Brett Fraser's information up there. Same thing. You got a different road. It was him and I, it's probably about the same. David now it'd be different.
If I always send Tom in my place anytime I'm getting tried.
If that worked, I'd just have my pads tested within a mile of each other and say, hey, they're all good.
Yeah. It's just really, I'll tell you. And Riverstone ought to have their hands really slapped too for hiring a company that led them down the path to where there ain't no water at the end of it. Except there's a lot of water in this one. Anything to say?
So, in the interest of moving forward, I move to approve item 7F.
Second? Okay. Anybody from the public got anything to say? Okay. Bring her back.
Call for the vote. Supervisor Frazier?
Yes.
Supervisor Rogers?
Yes.
Supervisor Poitras?
Yes.
Supervisor Wheeler?
As I hate to, I have to say yes, because we've got to get it done for the public safety, and we have no choice to get it done. On 274, on that re-graveling, that they screwed us on that one too. I see there's marked now up there all over places is bare. Are they going to do that, or are we paying for that? Another one of our jobs we've got south.
We're working on that one too.
Okay. We got them all marked now, so thank you, staff. Okay, now we're going to move again. We're going to move to item D, so we can get Paul and Melissa here done in.
7D, County Administration Department, Human Resources Operations Division. Discussion and consideration of approval to amend the classification plan for the Department of Public Health with direction to 1, add the classification of Assistant Public Health Director. 2, set the salary range for Assistant Public Health Director as follows. Range 399, $9,194 to $11,175 per month. 3, designate the Assistant Public Health Director class as overtime exempt pursuant to the Fair Labor Standards Act. 4, allocate the Assistant Public Health Director class to the Mid-Management Unit for bargaining purposes. 5, eliminate the class of Nutritional Services Director. 6, direct the Human Resources Operations Division of County Administration to amend the position allocation within the Public Health Department as follows, effective April 1st, 2017. A, eliminate 1 full-time employee allocated to the class of Nutritional Services Director. B, add 1 full-time employee and allocate it to the class of Public Health Program Manager. And County Council, yet an additional language.
Right.
Yes, thank you, Madam Clerk. I think it's implicit in the item if you review the board letter, and it's consistent with the other approvals, but it's not included on the agenda, so we did want to include an additional item under 6C, just to clarify for the board what it is that's taking place, and that is to add one FTE and allocate that to the class of Assistant Public Health Director. Again, I think it's implicit in the board report, but it's not specifically listed on the agenda, so it's not.
So should we add that to it?
Yeah, we can add that as item C. We'll add that as item C. Okay. But again, it's consistent. It's not.
Do we do that first before we do the other?
Move to approve with the adding of item 6C.
Correct. And so when you consider the item, that would be part of the recommendation. Okay. Thank you.
Move to approve with that addition.
Second.
Second by Rob.
Call for the vote. Supervisor Frazier?
Yes.
Supervisor Poitras?
Yes.
Supervisor Rogers?
Yes.
Supervisor Wheeler?
Yes.
Vote passes 4-0 with one absent.
Okay. Now then.
Good afternoon, Chairman, members of the board. Michelle May, reporting for Administration Human Resources on behalf of Adrian Caleb, who could not be here today, but I'm happy to be here. So the item before you is outlined in the agenda item, board letter for you, and the amendments to the classification plan will provide the Public Health Director, who is here to say a few words as well, of course, will provide her with the ability to achieve her preferred and efficient, effective organizational structure. And I will turn that over to Bob. Good afternoon.
Move to approve.
Oh, I had like a 10-minute speech prepared.
Hey, board, quit being rude. Go ahead.
Thank you.
We trust. What the whole problem is, Vaughn, we trust you.
Thank you.
So go ahead, Bill.
Well, in 2 seconds or less, I just want to say thank you for your trust and your confidence and your support of my attempts to really continually look at my organizational structure for opportunities to make it more efficient. And this is one of those efforts. So thank you. So that didn't take 10 minutes. That took 2 minutes.
After that, I'd like to rescind. I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
So my motion is still on the floor.
Second.
And Rob seconded.
Call for the vote. Supervisor Frazier?
Yes.
Supervisor Poitras?
Yes.
Supervisor Rogers?
Yes.
Supervisor Wheeler?
Yes.
Vote passes 4-0, one absent.
Okay, anybody out in the public have anything to say on item D? Seeing none, thank you guys. Thank you so much. Okay, now we're going to go back to C, I think it is. Yep, C.
7C, County Administration Department Security Services. 1, discussion and consideration of approval of transfer of appropriations number 16-201 in the amount of $205,575 from provisional contingency appropriations for contingency to special payments, professional and specialized services for fiscal year 2016-17, 4 votes required. 2, discussion and direction to staff for the scope of security services to be acquired for the upcoming fiscal year.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Eric Fleming, County Administrator. I'm joined here with Joel Bugay, who's our Deputy CAO over the budget. What you have here is an item that for additional security services. Typically, it's a pretty standard amount that we have every year and a set area of coverage. We have changed our service levels this year. We were required to provide an additional level of security services for the District Attorney's Office at the old courthouse, as well as additional security services in Courthouse Park. And so we're requesting to enhance the budget to cover those additional costs and seek any comments that you may have as far as going forward. If you want to continue these services, we intend to include those in budget recommendations for 17-18 and continue the service. So we're available for any questions.
Anything you want to say before they jump right in here?
No, thank you.
Oh, no thanks?
Nothing I add, Mr. Chairman.
We want to hear you talk now.
Let the tree fall sometimes.
Yeah.
I could tell a joke, but, that might not be appropriate.
I like jokes, man. Bring it. You want me to tell you one?
No.
Oh, shoot.
I'm going to censure you if you start telling jokes up here.
Okay.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
Anybody out in the public got anything to say? Brittany always come up and I said, I'm going to fire you. Okay.
Call for the vote. Supervisor Poitras?
Yes.
Supervisor Frazier?
Yes.
Supervisor Rogers?
Yes.
Supervisor Wheeler?
Yes.
Vote passes 4-0, one absent.
Thank you. Now we'll go to item, where we at? Go down here, E.
7E, County Administration Department, Human Resources Operations Division. Discussion and consideration of approval to grant Harkaran Sandhu, Deputy Director of
Sandhu.
Deputy Director of Social Services with additional compensation in the amount of $1,816.87 a month pursuant to County Code Section 260-310.
Good afternoon. Michelle May back, reporting for Administration Human Resources on this item. And Ms. Sandhu is being considered here for a special pay increase due to the additional duties outlined in the board letter. And I'm available to answer any questions if you have any.
Move to approve. Second. Second. Anybody out in the public got anything to say? Got to do this right. Make sure nobody's sneaking in on it. Okay, bring it back. Rhonda, please.
Call for the vote. Supervisor Frazier?
Yes.
Supervisor Rogers? Yes. Supervisor Poitras?
Yes.
Supervisor Wheeler?
Yes.
Vote passes 4-0, one absent.
Thank you. Well, you've been busy today, man. Okay. Item number G, like in goodies.
7G, Social Services Department. Discussion and consideration of approval to hire Frank Chenard. Could you say it for me, Hub?
Yes, Chenardi.
Thank you. At the E-Step for the staff
I'll work on it.
At the E-Step for the staff services manager position, effective April 1, 2017.
Move to approve.
Second.
Out to the public. Nobody's out there. Bring it back. Rhonda?
Call for the vote. Supervisor Frazier?
Yes.
Supervisor Poitras?
Yes.
Supervisor Rogers? Yes. Supervisor Wheeler?
Huh?
Supervisor? Yes. Vote passes 4-0, one absent.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Hub. Thank you, buddy. Thank all of you very much. You too, Stan. Okay. Okay, pending legislation.
Yeah.
Come on up.
Good afternoon, Chairman, members of the board. Melissa De Silva, Chief of Staff to Supervisor Frazier. I believe that Rhonda passed out some information for you with regards to Assembly Bill number 199, and we just wanted to bring this to your attention today. This is a bill that was passed by committee on March 15th regarding prevailing wage that could have a huge impact on just the day-to-day home building in our area. It could potentially increase the amount of a home 40 to 50%. There was 21 groups registered support, and then there was 122 opposed, many of them being, of course, the Chamber of Commerce, the building industry, most particularly Fresno Madera building industry. So we just want to bring it to your attention. I think that Norm Allender had a conversation with Senator Cannella that perhaps he could give us some more information on it.
Yes, I talked to Senator Cannella on Sunday. He called me back. He was watching Beauty and the Beast with his family, and then he called me back. But he did indicate, because, I mean, I had a lot of phone calls, and many of you have, that a deal is afoot to sort of clarify this. Just like every other sort of draconian law that comes out, this was done by a developer who got, on a mixed-use project, got some public money for the upper floors, which were residential. The lower floors were to be commercial and weren't billed according to prevailing wage, right? Because that just was the agreement. Well, what ended up happening was the lower floors, they did the shell, and then when they did the TI, they built it as residential and didn't pay prevailing wage. So that it was in compliance with the agreement, but what the developer in that case did was kind of got through on a loophole. Well, guess what happens when you do that? It becomes a big enough issue is they try to change it statewide, right? So the goal was not to happen on every market rate project. It was the original law says that when you are getting like RDA money or housing authority money, you would then have to do prevailing wage. Well, they're reframing that to maybe catch one or two people who have gotten away with that, but they're in doing so literally. By the way, some of this is interpreted. Every project in Riverstone and Rio Mesa, City of Madera, City of Chowchilla, every one of them would be prevailing wage. That would be catastrophic, not just to the industry, to the affordable housing, right?
Yeah.
I'm your affordable housing advocate for Madera County, right? I keep your housing element up to date. We do this, and it really will affect families trying to buy a home. I mean, the low-income housing advocates are coming out against this, and I'm glad, because it really will affect affordability.
Yeah, that was my point. Is how could you have an affordable house built at prevailing wage that's 40 to 50, like, so if you have what would have been an affordable house at $100,000, now it's $150 to $175,000. I mean, it's insane that this is even a bill, and I was shocked at who was supporting it. Just kidding.
So, where's it at on the floor?
So it's moved to the Assembly Committee on Appropriations, but the date has not been set yet.
Okay, so we need to write the letter right away, right?
No.
We need to help. You maybe ought to send this to all the other counties around us.
The cities, everybody needs to weigh in on it.
We need to really get them, even guys like Harris Construction, King Hussein, all those guys, we need to have them.
Them that work with the unions, I mean, it is just so dangerous. I just can't even believe it.
I know the building industry has sent out letters.
RCRC?
RC, I'm not sure about.
Mayor
Fresno has written a letter.
That hurt them worse than any of them.
Yeah.
Okay. Everybody thumbs up on this to write a letter?
Do it.
Okay. We'll do it. Thank you.
Thank you, both of you. Any other pending legislation? Okay, supervisors, staff, and supervisors and staff reports.
I have nothing to report today.
I'm going this way, so I'm just going to say that Rob and I went to Sacramento on a mediation, and it come out okay. So
I attended RCRC and the Regional Health Authority this last week.
Nothing to report.
Nothing to report.
Scott. Rhonda.
Nothing to report. Thank you.
We're adjourned, just like that.